Namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and, she said, "We're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady." I mean, they're crazy far left.
If you look on the right side, Jamie, where it says the truth is a distraction from getting things done, that is such a fucking Orwellian thing to say. Click on that just so you can hear her say this, because it's so bananas that someone would say this out loud and not think it's...
One of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth.
Oh, no.
They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become
what?
A bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
What?
Oh my God.
How?
Bill Maher just went head-to-head with NPR, and the showdown was as cutting as it was entertaining. NPR loves to parade itself as the gold standard of balance, a supposedly neutral outlet serving facts without bias. But anyone paying attention knows that's more myth than reality. Rather than keeping to the middle, NPR has clearly tilted to one side. And here's the kicker. Even when they happened to align with Maher, he didn't let them off easy. In trademark Maher style, he ripped into the network for failing the very mission it brags about upholding. The result? A takedown as fiery as it was funny. Let's break it down.
And PBS testified before Congress this week amid accusations of liberal bias. Should the government continue to send taxpayer dollars to public broadcasters? Well, a little background here. I mean, they've been after them the Republicans have wanted to get rid of PBS for as long as I can remember. This crowd will probably do it. I mean, I also read my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and, she said, "We're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady." I mean, they're crazy far left.
Maher didn't waste a second pulling punches. He flat out declared that NPR and PBS have drifted way out to the far left. Sure, their execs will deny it till they're blue in the face, but the receipts tell another story. Case in point, back in April 2024, NPR's own senior editor, Uri Berliner, called out the network for surrendering entirely to progressive orthodoxy. That's not a conservative talking point, that's an insider admitting it. And it doesn't end there. NPR's CEO, Catherine Maher, later conceded they dropped the ball on covering the Hunter Biden laptop scandal when it actually counted. Add to that a 2025 congressional grilling over their endless fixation on race, gender, and identity politics, and the neutrality myth collapses fast. Maher roasted them for every bit of it, and the heat was blistering.
I think we're past the age, really, where the government, first of all, why do we need to subsidize? Why can't we have outlets like this? And we're so polarized. These outlets became popular at a time when Republicans and Democrats didn't hate each other and weren't at each other's throats and didn't think each other was an existential threat. In that world, you can't have places like this, I think, anymore. They have to be private.
I've got to admit, Maher has a point here. PBS and NPR take in big chunks of government funding, which leaves them wide open to political pressure. Any administration, left or right, can quietly nudge the narrative to fit its agenda. That's a dangerous loophole because what's supposed to be unbiased reporting can easily slide into state-approved messaging. And let's be real, once you depend on government sponsorship, it's only a matter of time before journalism starts sounding like propaganda. Anyway, roll the clip.
I think Uri Berliner, ex-NPR employer, his piece this week, where he said that they should just let go of the funding. I love NPR. I listen to NPR almost every day, have since 1975, when my parents used to play it in our Chevrolet Caprice when I was like 9 years old. I love it for its point of view, but since 2020, it has no longer been general. I remember in 2021, my then 9-year-old asked me, and of course she has no sense of context, I don't pump her full of things like this. She said from the back seat in a very different car, she said, "Daddy, why is it that NPR is always playing the same thing? And I said, what do you mean the same thing? And I swear she said, now she doesn't have a vocabulary, but she said, it's always about how somebody can't do something. And that what she was getting at was that. I wouldn't have said that about the NPR that I knew back in the day, and I wouldn't have said it 10 years ago, but that is what it is now.
On this one, I'm with Maher too. Leading up to last year's election, NPR was locked on the Trump campaign like a heat-seeking missile. Every gaffe, every phrase, every shrug, replayed, corrected, and dissected non-stop. Even NPR's own public editor admitted waves of complaints came in about how obsessive the coverage had become. But here's the kicker. It didn't always look like hard-hitting journalism. It felt more like a strategy to spotlight every misstep, stir confusion, and crank up the pressure on undecided voters. Call it news if you want, but it smelled a whole lot like sabotage.
Funding NPR is crazy. Like this, you can't have a completely biased, one-sided media organization that's funded by the government and taxpayers. That's crazy. And they went over all the amount of people that were on NPR that were Democrats, and it's 100%.
Yeah.
It's like out of 87 people, it's 100%.
Look at the New York Times.
Yeah.
I mean, so that none of that should be a surprise to anybody who's
But the New York Times is at
paying
least
half of
a
money.
privately funded company.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's like NPR relied on tax money, and there's this giant outrage that the government's going to defund it.
This one's downright wild. The Democrats basically rigged the deck by dominating NPR's newsroom. Reports say nearly 80% identify as Democrats. That's staggering. Remember, this isn't a private blog waving a partisan flag. It's a taxpayer-backed outlet. With public money in the mix, the bare minimum expectation should be balance. A 50-50 split, Democrats and Republicans, would at least guarantee real diversity of thought. Instead, what we've got is an echo chamber where one ideology rules the roost and the other barely gets a word in. That doesn't just warp reporting, it nukes public trust in journalism altogether. And Maher torching them for it only showed how deep the rot goes.
Hey, the reality is the internet exists. And we don't need... You don't need to publicly fund something that's clearly biased when the internet exists.
Right.
You can get whatever you want. If you want to just absorb and consume only left-wing media, there's so much available. You can go find it. But our tax dollars should not be going to that.
No. And to be fair, if anybody wants to know what the hell's going on in the news, they can just listen to the President's Daily Brief podcast, frankly.
Oh, your podcast.
I'm good, right? Yeah, that's
thing.
boy, I just stuck that in there.
I can't find this fuck.
Joe Rogan nailed it on this point. In today's world, the internet is everywhere. Right in your pocket, on your tablet, even on the cheapest laptop. You don't have to lean on government-funded outlets or legacy media gatekeepers when raw, unfiltered reporting is just a click away. The internet shattered the monopoly. No more being spoon-fed whatever narrative a handful of elites decide to push. Instead, you can scan dozens of independent voices, compare their takes, and form your own opinion. Sure, there's noise and misinformation, but that's where discernment comes in. With a little effort, you'll find real investigations and perspectives the mainstream conveniently buries. In a media landscape that feels rigged, the internet is still the one place where balance and choice survive.
It concerns you. That's fantastic.
As far as the accusations that we're biased, I would stand up and say, please show me a story that concerns you, because we want to know and we want to bring that conversation back to our newsroom.
And then they have all these.
Fat phobia, its racist past and present. Some white people may choose thumbs up because it feels neutral, but some academics argue that opting out, what does that mean? Thumbs up signals lacks awareness about white privilege, akin to society associating whiteness with being raceless. What?
God.
What does that mean?
Or how about how racism became a marketing tool for country music?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
NPR loves to parade around as neutral, but the receipts say otherwise. Scroll their site for 5 minutes and you'll see it. A non-stop stream of pieces that boost Democratic narratives, while anything that might favor Republicans is buried, softened, or spun with skepticism. That pattern doesn't happen by accident. So when Trump calls for defunding NPR and PBS, it's not some random outburst, it's grounded in evidence. Why should taxpayers bankroll a newsroom that doesn't reflect the full spectrum of political thought in this country? If public money is on the table, the bare minimum should be fairness. Right now, NPR hasn't done much to prove it deserves that trust or that funding.
Amy, where it says the truth is a distraction from getting things done. That is such a fucking Orwellian thing to say. Click on that just so you can hear her say this. Because it's so bananas that someone would say this out loud and not think it's...
One of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth.
Oh, no.
They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become
what?
A bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
What?
Oh my God.
And there it is. At the end of the day, NPR has never really been about digging for raw, unfiltered truth. It's been about shaping consensus. Instead of laying out the facts and letting listeners decide, they frame stories to steer audiences toward a pre-approved conclusion. And who wins from that? The Democrats. NPR has become a megaphone for progressive talking points, pushing cultural and political narratives straight from the left's playbook. Alternative perspectives, dismissed, buried, or conveniently ignored. That's not journalism. It's indoctrination wrapped in the credibility of a taxpayer-funded outlet. Which is exactly why critics call it less of a watchdog and more of a woke weapon. Maher saw it and he called it out.
To admit that they blew the whole thing way out of proportion, because as always with media these days, they don't cover what's most important, just what's most fun to watch. There are 15.2 million college students in the U.S., and 2,300 have been arrested. That's 1/67th of 1%, and half of the ones in New York weren't even students. But we were given the false impression that these protesters are the voice of their generation, having found a cause for which they were willing to go to the tents and to the barricades. Oh, please, these kids are more violent when their team wins a championship.
And Maher nailed this one. Modern media isn't obsessed with truth. It's obsessed with clicks. The mission isn't to inform, it's to entertain. Every slip-up becomes a scandal. Every debate is spun into a circus, and every headline is crafted for outrage over accuracy. Why? Because outrage sells, scandal trends, and exaggeration keeps ratings alive. Fact-checking? That's an afterthought buried under the race to be first on your feed. The result is a news cycle designed to shock, not to serve. Maher's point was simple. When media turns into a reality show instead of a truth teller, society loses. Accuracy dies, accountability fades, and all we're left with is noise.
Chant, the whole world is watching. They're right. But only because you assholes with the cameras won't show anything else. Isn't there a bear in a swimming pool somewhere you should be covering?
The media today thrives on rage and spectacle.
The truth is, today's media runs on rage and spectacle, and nothing fuels that machine like conflict. A protest with a few hundred people, framed as mass unrest. A scuffle in the street, packaged as violence sweeping the nation. By exaggerating scale and intensity, they craft the illusion of chaos, feeding viewers fear while making the government look powerless. Calm doesn't sell, outrage does. So the cameras zoom in on the shouting, the clashes, the most dramatic frame possible. The result? A distorted picture where ordinary dissent is inflated into a national crisis, all for ratings. And Maher's takedown of NPR revealed the larger truth. Media isn't about balance or facts anymore. It's about agenda, drama, and control. If nothing changes, propaganda will finish replacing journalism in America. And that's where we'll wrap today's video. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like and subscribe for more.